Was J.W. Broadcasting foretold by the secret societies and the Illuminati in the 1990s? Well, I'm going to show you some circumstantial evidence that suggests that perhaps J.W. Broadcasting was foretold back in the 90s by these secret society groups. So if I were to show you this picture, use your imagination and tell me who you think that looks like. Now this card says TV Preachers. It's depicting a religious organization that is on TV preaching. So who does that look like? Well, I'm going to show you who I think it looks like and what I think it's depicting. Stephen Lett of J.W. Broadcasting. Now, this might seem to be a stretch for some of you watching to conclude that I think that this is depicting this. But take a good look at that face and what it's depicting. So now let me explain something called the Illuminati card game. Now the Illuminati card game, it's a card game that was made in the 1990s. I believe it was 1995 and 1996, or it could have been 1994 and 1995. But it's a card game where these secret society groups, specifically the Illuminati, have created these cards that are more so predicting what they plan on doing or what they already done. Now, this is not to be confused with any sort of tarot reading. It's basically a way that they are trying to put clues out there of things that they plan on doing. And that way, in the future, when we see these things, we could go back and reference these cards and say, oh, they were behind it. So the things that are in this Illuminati card game are things that they are taking credit for when we see these things in the future. And again, this game came out in around 1995. Now, some may say, well, that's kind of a stretch to say that that looks like Stephen Lett. Well, let me explain a little bit about how this card game works to get a better understanding on why I'm saying this. Now, here is one card that basically shows that this is a no-joke card game. Now, keep in mind, this came out in 1995, 1996, and you can see what this is depicting. And you can even see where that explosion is at the exact same spot that the real event happened in. So what they were telling us with this card in 1995 is that if we see something that looks like this, well, the Illuminati secret societies are behind it. Now, if you're still skeptical and you think this is just a coincidence, we'll take a look at this other card. A matching card that goes with that one. So what are the odds that back in the early 90s, they came out with these predictions of things that they were planning, and we've seen these exact things happen? So this is just a little education for those who are not familiar with the Illuminati card game and what it's all about. Now, as far as whether or not that picture I showed you earlier looks like Stephen Lett, well, these cards are not necessarily meant to be exact portraits of the people they're portraying. For example, in this one, we can see that this is depicting Hillary Clinton. But you can see that it doesn't really look exactly like Hillary Clinton. It's more so like a comic book representation of Hillary Clinton. And in this card, it's no secret who they're talking about because it flat out says Hillary Clinton. So the only question is, what is the Illuminati trying to tell us about Hillary Clinton that they have this card? Now, some of these cards do not have names because they're more meant as a mystery. Now, this one, Agent in Place, some people think that this is showing us depicting Alex Jones. Now, is this really depicting Alex Jones? Well, I don't know who it's depicting exactly, but what it's telling us is that somebody who we trust is really one of their agents in place, like a double agent. So who this is, well, that's a mystery. And this is similar to the one that I showed you earlier that I believe is Stephen Lett. You see, they're not telling us specifically who this is depicting and what organization it's depicting. It's more so giving us a clue. So now that you understand that these pictures are not meant to be exact portraits of these people, more so like cartoon or comic book representations. So we have to look deep in these images to see the hidden clues to try to see, well, who is this depicting? So the first thing you might notice is that it's called TV preachers. And what they're letting us know is that there's a religious organization that has not previously been doing TV preaching work, but that in the future they would become TV preachers. And this would be around the time we're living in now. And the reason I say that is because most of these Illuminati cards are basically all coming, I wouldn't say true, but more so these things are happening now in our time today. Some of them early 2000s, like the ones I showed you earlier from 9/11, but most of them are coming out around the time we're living in now, like 2000s, 2010, 2015, that time zone. So what religious organization group are they foretelling would end up being TV preachers that wasn't previously doing it in the 1990s? Now, the second clue is you see this money flying around, suggesting that this TV preaching is going to get to a point where they're asking for a lot of money. And we see that JW Broadcasting recently has started to ask for a lot of money unusual. In fact, I remember a JW broadcast, and please let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about so I can go back to it and reference it. But there's a JW broadcast where, actually it was Stephen Lett, the brother we're talking about now, where he said something to the effect of that there was more money going out than money coming in. And he used this during a disaster relief situation to kind of cover it over. So he was saying that, they're sending all this money out for disaster relief and all these other projects, and there's more money going out than there is coming in. Now, this was a shock, at least to me, when I was still a Jehovah's Witness, because Jehovah's Witnesses in the past have always said how they don't beg for money. They don't pass a collection plate around. But this has been a shift around, I think this was maybe around 2018, 2019, when I heard him say that. So there's been a shift as far as them more so asking for money and guilt tripping. And with the Ramapo project, the big audiovisual center where they're pretending they're doing all their own production, who knows what they're really using all that money for, but they're also asking for free labor. And some of the free labor is just as basically valuable or more valuable than donations. Now, I'll give you credit where credit is due. Jehovah's Witnesses build incredible buildings. They're very good buildings, just like the Masons, so that shouldn't surprise us because Masons also have had a reputation of being good builders. So when you look at these buildings that they're building, especially the Ramapo project, it is definitely very financially valuable when they're also asking for free labor to have these buildings built for free by the labor of the congregations. So going back to this picture, we see that this organization that would then start to be TV preachers would also be asking for money, and that's what we see in this depiction. Now, if we take a closer look, more of a close-up at these two pictures, look at his facial characteristics. We'll start off with that first. Look at his mouth. The Illuminati card mouth versus Stephen Lett's mouth. Look at the lines around his mouth. Now, and I don't know if I'm seeing things, but if you see on the side of his head, look at his ears. And look at Stephen Lett's ears. It almost looks identical. And I don't know if I'm just seeing this, but it looks like identical facial characteristics. Now, again, remember, this is meant to be a comic book representation, so it's not going to be identical portrait of Stephen Lett, but it's meant to represent him in a secret way, in a symbolistic way. So, and then also keep in mind too that this card game came out in the 1990s, so you might want to get a better look at what Stephen Lett looked like in the 1990s as opposed to here. But again, this is just meant to be a representation. So, and you also can see by his mouth expression that Stephen Lett is known to have very exaggerated, animated mannerisms. And that's what you can see here with this Illuminati card, is that this guy isn't just calm. He's basically very, very animated as what's being illustrated here, just like Stephen Lett. So, is this depicting JW Broadcasting back in the 90s? Because if it is, then they're telling you that JW Broadcasting is an Illuminati production, ran by them, something that they're foretelling, and they let us know in the 90s that this would be coming forth. Now, for those who maybe have not seen my other videos or have not done research until Watchtower's occultic ties, I wanted to show a couple of things that I covered on my other videos just to kind of remind people, or those who haven't seen it, that they already have ties with the Illuminati, secret societies, Freemasons. So you can go to jw.org's own website and type in Jehovah's Witnesses Faith in Action movie and fast forward about 36 minutes in, or 38, somewhere around there, and you'll see an all-seeing eye pyramid right on their own website. And you can find this on their website. And what this clip of this documentary is from was their movie called The Photodrama of Creation. That's where it's originally from, but there's a clip on it right on their own website. And then another Freemasonic sign is if you go to Jehovah's Witnesses Faith in Action Part 2, right on their own website, you can see a clear Freemasonic symbol. And for this one, you want to fast forward about like 12, 13 minutes into the video, somewhere around there. And you can clearly see that that is a Freemason sign. And this is right on jw.org own website. And then I've covered this before many times, that they have an assembly hall that's constructed as the all-seeing eye. And you can see that it's definitely not a coincidence. This is their assembly hall in Denmark, which apparently they're either sold already or in the process of selling to get rid of the evidence. So when you see those occultic ties, and there's many more than that. I mean, many people know that there's an Illuminati pyramid at Charles Taze Russell's gravesite. There's been Freemason symbols on the Watchtower magazines, the old magazine. So there's a lot more Freemasonic Illuminati symbolism connected with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So once we understand that, now to look at this card, it's not that far-fetched to conclude that this could perhaps be foretelling JW Broadcasting, and that can indeed be a representation of Stephen Lett. So, when analyzing this, now again, you have to really understand the way the Illuminati card game works to understand why I'm saying this. This is how it works. They put these clues in these cards, and they're sending a message that when you see these things, that they're the ones behind it. And again, they're not meant to be exact portraits of the people, but more so cartoon representations. So what we have is that they told us when this card came out in 1995 that there'd be a religious organization that was not previously doing TV preaching, but would in a time we're living in now. And there's a check mark to JW Broadcasting for that. Then we can also see they're letting us know that this religious group that would then be doing TV preaching would also start to be asking for money, which is illustrated with the symbol of money on this card. And we see that Jehovah's Witnesses have recently, on JW Broadcasting, been boldly asking for money, which they previously have not done before. And another thing is that we also know that, and this is not a big deal, but Jehovah's Witnesses like the color blue. And, that's the symbol of their JW logo. Some other people have mentioned some other conspiracy type of things around the color blue. But he's also wearing a blue suit. And when you examine these Illuminati cards, that you need to examine every single thing, because that's how they design these. They design it where everything you're looking at is a clue of something. So it is significant that he's wearing a color blue, which is the color that they like to use for JW.org. That's not a big clue, but it is noteworthy. And then we can see that you can look at his facial expressions and his mannerisms, and you can see that the Illuminati card is showing the same mannerisms and facial expressions, and even his ears match Stephen Lett's ears. So it's not too many other people that are going to fit that specific description, because Stephen Lett, that's a very specific description. Not too many other people are going to match that. And then as the last point I mentioned, we already showed that they clearly have ties with the Illuminati already, and they have symbolism right on their own website. So I'm not saying this is a fact. This is more circumstantial evidence, but as far as I can see it, so please let me know if you know another religious organization that matches all of these things that this would be depicting. But from what I can see, that there's absolutely no other religious organization that matches all of these characteristics. This, to me, appears to be depicting JW Broadcasting. And if I'm correct, that means that JW Broadcasting is an Illuminati Freemasonic creation.